Hi, I'm Matthew Walters.
Hi, I'm Orna Walters.
Welcome to Why Smart Women Stay Single.
So if you are a smart single woman who is wondering why you're struggling in love, this is the right place to be. We want to connect with you first. So if you could type into the chat box where in the world you are right now, where are you joining us from? We want to know.
Yeah, so let's bring up the slides here. Everybody, this is us, Why Smart Women Stay Single. And as we've said, please share where you are in the world into the chat box.
Yeah, we want to connect with you, picture where you are in the world. It helps us because our goal is really to connect with you. We have a lot of content to share with you today. We've got somebody joining us from Washington, D.C. Hello, San Francisco, California.
Tucson, Arizona.
We have people, wow, from around the globe. So thank you for joining us. We try to do this at a time where people from around the globe can join us and not just North America. So thanks for joining us from around the world. Thank you again for spending part of your Saturday with us. We are going to share with you a lot of content. So if you have paper and pen handy, go ahead and feel free to take as many notes as you want. And if you have any questions, we are going to be sure to answer all your questions towards the end. So we'll make sure to cover all your questions. So you can go ahead and type them into the chat box as we go through the content. Or of course, you can hold on to them on your notes. And then when we ask for questions, put them in the chat box.
Exactly. All right, great. So we're really excited. This is some really new material for us. And we think you're going to get a lot of benefit from today's webinar. So let's dive right in. I'm going to bring up the slides again.
And so this idea of why smart women stay single is not a new concept that we've been working with. We've been working with it for a while. And we want to tell you if you're in the right place, because we know your time is precious. And I don't want you to waste your time if you're not a match for the content we're going to share.
Yeah.
So today we're going to let you know if the strategies we're going to share with you today are going to work for you.
So if you're successful in every area of your life, except for lasting love, I mean, maybe you find it easier to focus on your career because you know how to get results there.
You are in the right place today if you can identify what's holding you back. Maybe you can identify your limiting beliefs or your bad strategies for love, but you have no idea how to actually create the change that you're looking for. So you might have the awareness, but you haven't been able to implement or create something different.
You're in the right place if you know you're smart, and yet you can't understand why love has been such a mystery for you.
You're in the right place today if you feel like you've tried everything. I can relate to that. Maybe you have all the information, but what you're really looking for is a transformation. Then you're in the right place.
You're in the right place today if at the end of the day, you know that your life is full and you like yourself and you'd like to share your life with that special guy who really gets you and has your back.
Okay, so I think a lot of you may have heard this Einstein quote before, but if you haven't, maybe it's the first time. And Einstein said this. He was a pretty smart guy. He says, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking that we used when we created them. And so we're going to be talking a lot about the strategies that you created for yourself and that at one time they served you, but now they probably don't anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to also give you some really useful techniques and tips about how to change those strategies. So ultimately, we're going to show you how you can connect with your soulmate without sacrificing your intelligence, your freedom, your feminine power, or your needs.
We don't want you to sacrifice anything. When we talk about creating a true soul partnership, it's the vision of what you want. It's not what I want or what Matthew wants. And of course, the guy or the gal or that you end up with is part of that vision. And it's something that you co-create with that other person. We're going to talk a lot about that today as well.
So let's be clear about what we're going to be talking about today, because this isn't some magic pill that's going to solve all of your problems. If you're looking for, new dating and flirting tips, I mean, really, who wants to date anyway? I know I wasn't crazy about it, right? That's not what we're going to be doing here today.
We're not going to be sharing dating or flirting tips, so that's not it. We are not going to share with you places to meet this quality men. I don't know what that's all about. Quality is in the eye of the beholder, just like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And quite frankly, men hang out where all other men are. How are you supposed to identify a quality man over a not quality man? We're not big on generalizations here. I know as a woman, if a bunch of men were hanging around talking about where are all the quality women, I would be offended. I don't like making broad sweeping generalizations like that. And you don't need to meet men anyway. What you're looking for, I would imagine, if you're joining us today, you're looking for your soulmate, your beloved, the guy who, I don't want to say you're meant to be with because it's a co-creation, it is a choice, but you don't need men. You need man. Or if you date women, then one woman, one man.
Exactly.
You only need one.
You just need one. You don't need men. Also, we're not going to be talking about magical shifts that don't require you to do anything. Permanent change, real change in our lives requires our full participation, not only consciously, but subconsciously, emotionally, and in the actions that we take. Oftentimes, we look for techniques that, somebody just does to us or does on us, or, just sort of like waves the magic wand and makes the thing that we don't like disappear. And our experience has shown us that that is not lasting change. It's not actually going to get you what you want. So if you're looking for those things, well, this is not the right place for you.
So you don't have to stick around, but if that you're not looking for those things, we've got a lot for you today. And again, I know a lot more people have joined us since we just started. We're asking that you go ahead and share with us where in the world you're joining us from. So if you go ahead and put your location in the chat box, there's a chat box where you can type with us. We're going to be checking that chat box throughout this webinar today, and we want to engage with you. So please tell us, where are you? Where in the world are you? We want to connect with you. So thank you for those who have already shared, and we want to go ahead and see where you're joining us from.
We have somebody who just says hi. Oh, Hawaii.
Hawaii. Yeah. A lot going on in Hawaii.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you for that. We really appreciate that. We've got somebody.
Poland, Ohio, Michigan.
Hi. I love it. We've got people from all around the globe as well, from other countries. Thanks for joining us. We've got people, wow, a lot going on here. And I'm wondering, I just have to ask, anybody watch the royal wedding? Because I'm sort of, I don't want to say obsessed, but I've watched like all the royal weddings, and since I had to be camera ready this morning, I didn't watch it live. I normally would have gotten up in the middle of the night. So just type in the chat box if you care at all or watched any of the royal wedding, or if you're looking at the pictures of her gown or dress, what was shared today. It was a big celebration of love that happened in England. And I'm actually not surprised we don't have anybody from England. We usually do. But we do have somebody joining us from Costa Rica. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, that's exciting.
We have people joining us, also from Warsaw in Poland. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us up in Canada. We've got quite a few people. We've got Doreen from Chattanooga. Thanks for joining us today. And I won't bring up the royal wedding again because nobody jumped on that train. So I know you're probably happy about that.
I'm fine. All right, so let's continue on. So one of the things we want to say is our results, and the results we're going to share today are, they're really anything but typical, right? These women were willing to go deep within, face their fears, and be open to having their belief systems rewritten.
And what we're talking about today takes immense courage, and we're going to share their stories as an example of what's possible for you if you commit to your own success. So you're in charge. We have free will choice in this lifetime. So we're going to show you some steps. And again, feel free to take as many notes as you like. And we are going to be answering your questions. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to type them in the chat box or take notes. We are going to be asking for questions at the end.
So does this sound like you? Are you tired of the lather, rinse, repeat cycle of your love life? Different face, but ends up being the same guy that, is not the guy, and you're out there dating yet again?
And does this sound like you? Maybe you're attracted to someone who's not available in some way, like they're taken or they're emotionally unavailable. Or do you do your best to settle for the guy who's crazy about you, even though you're just kind of meh about him?
Yeah. Does this sound like you? Are you struggling to get excited about dating because you're afraid you'll have to give up your freedom and independence in order to get love?
Does this sound like you? Maybe you're frustrated on those challenging days. We've all had them, right? You feel alone and unsupported. And deep down, maybe you're afraid that you're going to grow old all alone.
Does this sound like you? Are you sick and tired of being at family events and everybody's asking if you're dating? Who are you dating? Why aren't you dating? Right? Everybody you talk to.
And they all have advice for you too. So if this sounds like you, you're in the right place. Are you ultimately afraid that somehow you might be broken, or maybe you didn't get the memo and you'll never figure out how to create lasting love? I know that was me for a very long time. Yeah. And if you're joining us for the very first time, we want you to know we didn't get together until after 40. So a lot of those are modeled after what we went through being single for so long.
So one of the things, the big thing we really want to share with you is what we call the 5 epiphanies, right? So if any of those descriptions sound like you, the truth is we have great news. None of those problems are the real problem. Those are just symptoms.
The real problem is that you haven't had what we like to call the 5 epiphanies, these 5 powerful insights that are finally going to help you look beyond the surface of what's not actually working in your love life.
You'll finally understand why your big, beautiful brain, right, is not your ally when it comes to love.
Can you come back to us?
Yeah, I can.
Because I feel like they haven't seen us.
Well, they do see us.
I know, but in the little box.
Sure.
There, hi.
Hi.
There we go. So I think that that's important. Are we?
Well, we have to go back to the slides because we're back into our story now.
Oh, okay. So then I just kind of messed that up, I guess. Hi. Yeah. I don't know how this technology works. I just like to connect with you all. So we really
There'll be plenty of opportunity for that.
I know. And I just want to say this. Our goal today is to really be of service to you in the best way possible. We know that your time is valuable. And these 5 epiphanies might be things you've never thought of before. So feel free to take as many notes as you like.
So once you have these 5 epiphanies, we want to share with you, you'll know why you've been stuck all these years and have a clear path to getting permanently unstuck.
You'll finally know without a doubt whether a man you're dating is the right man for you. Wouldn't it be nice to get rid of all the doubts?
Exactly. You'll never have to worry about getting your needs met or feeling cherished by the man you're with because you'll know how to do that.
You'll be able to share your life with someone that you can count on and who loves you for who you really are.
And you'll know deep down inside that you are worth loving, no matter what, because we believe that's the truth, right? That's the truth about all of us, is ultimately we are all worth loving.
Exactly as you are. You don't have to do anything to earn it.
Exactly, or become somebody to earn it. So how we discovered these 5 epiphanies and how that transformed our life, right? I mean, like Warren said, we weren't high school sweethearts, right? We didn't meet in college. We both struggled. We like to say one of the reasons we became relationship experts and soulmate coaches is because between the two of us, we pretty much made every mistake you can make in love. So we both struggled to create long-lasting love. And ultimately, we learned how to transform our own stories before we ever met and create our true soul partnership together when we did meet in our 40s, and we're still going strong in our 50s. So we want to share with you that journey that each of us took that got us to being in this place. So hopefully it gives you some insights about how you can do the same.
So let me tell you a little bit about my journey to love.
This is where I can go off.
Oh, I
slides.
See. Thanks. Hi, you're cute. All right. We're going to try not to make out through the whole webinar, I promise. The truth of the matter is that I was an overachiever. I always have been an overachiever. I always excelled in school. I was a straight A student. I graduated from UCLA with honors. I paid for school myself. Going to college was something that was really, really important to me. And so I worked full time And in the summertime, I worked 2, 3, sometimes 4 jobs so I can earn as much money as I could to go back to school. In the fall, it was kind of like running a marathon. But for me, I was always trying to prove my worth, to prove my own value. And I was always attracted to the unavailable guy for as long as I can remember. The guys that were sort of chasing after me, they didn't really do it for me. They didn't excite me. And the guys who were, I don't want to call them the bad boy. We always hear about this idea of the bad boy who won't commit. But I had some of those. But I also really struggled because it seemed to me like when I would first connect with somebody, I'd connect with a guy who was really into me, and we'd be dating for a few months. And right around the 3-month mark, he would drop me like a hot potato. And it seemed to me like it was the same reason that he would break up with me that 3 months earlier he was telling me he really liked about me. And so I was like, well, what's that all about? I mean, if they're leaving me for the same thing that drew them in to begin with, how am I supposed to do this any differently? And I'd been through a lot of heartbreaks, a lot of heartbreaks. And I pined over those unavailable men. And it was really, really difficult. And so in part of my journey was that I would get quiet and I would ask myself what I really wanted. Let's say, what do I really want? And there were a lot of great things in my life. I don't want to make it sound like everything was bad. I mean, I had a lot of great things in my life, a lot of great friends, a lot of great career choices. I worked in the entertainment industry for over 20 years. I worked on some of the most successful films in the industry. I helped make $300 million budget plus movies, 3 in 1 year, all at the same time. That was a little crazy. So I had a lot of success in my career, and I worked a lot. And I remember once working on a production where the production manager would keep us late into the night. And I'm talking like 1, 2 in the morning. And finally, the offices that we were renting told her she can't keep people past 11 o'clock. And I was so grateful because the truth is she didn't have anybody to go home to. And so she wasn't in a hurry to get home. And I kept thinking if I kept working like this, I was never going to have the time to really connect with a man and have what I really wanted. Because whenever I got really quiet, the answer that came when I say, what do I really want? The answer was love. I really wanted great love. And so I started looking for the answers. I started looking for how could I do things better? What dating strategies could I do? What could I do about myself? How could I show up differently? I tried everything. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I can assure you, if it exists in the world, it's here in Los Angeles, California. And I tried everything. I read books, and I went to workshops, and I went to healers, and I went to psychics, and I had tea leaves read, and cards read, and palms read, and you name it, I've done it, I've tried it. I looked at it from every which way. I had my Western astrology reading. I had my Vedic astrology reading. I did everything. And suddenly I realized that my career choice wasn't really serving my overall picture of what I wanted in my life. Because if I kept working in the entertainment industry, I'd be working 80+ hour weeks. I was working 14 to 18-hour days, 7 days a week. And I realized this isn't going to be it for me. And so I left the entertainment industry and I started working in personal growth. I became a coach. And at the time I was a manifestation coach, and I knew that I'd accomplished a lot. And so I know how to manifest things that you want. And the thing that I really wanted was love. And so I kept focusing on wanting that. So I tried a lot of stuff. And in the end, my journey to love really came with embracing my gifts. And I really became the GPS for your soul, because there's a way for me to read what's going on in somebody's soul's journey, what your life lessons are, what your life purposes are. And that helped me on my journey to know who I am and who I'm meant to be, so I can live at my highest and best self. And that's the place where Matthew and I believe you really can connect with your beloved on the path to your highest and best self. So I want you to start thinking about where in your life are you living that? Where are you living at your highest and best self? And where are you sacrificing things to stay where you are and not move forward on that path?
Exactly. I love that story. because it's all about you. So let's look at my story, right? My own journey to love. So, you know, like Orna, like a lot of you on this call, because it's why smart women say single, right? I was smart. I've always been smart, right? I had an academic full ride scholarship to college. It's not like I'm a stupid person, right? It's not like I've been bumbling around, but I spent a lot of my 20s and about half of my 30s really kind of blindly stumbling through my life because I didn't really know. I mean, I was successful. I had a lot of success at a lot of different things. And at some point, I'm going to turn this off and come back to me. At some point, I woke up and I had been getting some of the things in my career that I really wanted, some of the things I thought were going to make me happy. I thought were going to bring me what I really wanted. And I woke up and I realized I wasn't happy. And I spent all day on this one job and I was like, this is what I've been working towards. And this is what I think I really want. And I'm like, this is kind of boring and stupid. And why am I here? This really is a waste of my time. And so I came to this realization that I wasn't going to find happiness outside of me. I wasn't going to find happiness in what I was doing. I wasn't going to find happiness in another person unless I found that happiness within myself. And so I began a journey of discovering, how do I find that happiness within myself? I studied meditation. I studied all kinds of different meditation techniques. I studied yoga. I discovered hypnotherapy. I discovered all kinds of interesting tools, like Orna said, right? I've been in Los Angeles for over 25 years, and I went to a lot of different, very interesting healers and workshops and programs, and ultimately discovered that it really is about this story in our subconscious that we're carrying around. And it's about the emotional pieces of that story that we're carrying around. And so I began to unravel my own story. And what I realized was that my family of origin led to me really chasing rejection. It led to me not liking myself. And so I knew what that felt like inside, and what that felt like outside of me was a woman who wasn't interested in me, was a woman who was like, yeah, I guess you're kind of cute, but I don't know. I like this other guy over here. And I'd be like, oh, I need to get her. Right. And then I'd meet that other kind of woman who's like, wow, you're a really great guy. You're really cute. You're really smart. I really like you. I'd be like, I don't know about you. I mean, if you like me, there's something wrong. Right. Because I didn't like me. And so I had to really learn that journey of self-acceptance, learn how to love and value and appreciate myself, even the stuff that's not so great. Right. And part of that was, I've been 17 years sober on this journey. So it's really began looking at all of those pieces. And the final piece fell into place actually when I met Orna, because, as she said, she has a technique for discovering your life purpose and your life lessons. And there's something in my life purpose that says, I am a spiritual teacher. And when I heard that, I looked at Orna. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? You're really cute, but I don't know what you're talking about. And as I began to explore what that meant, right, how the work I was doing was leading other people to their realizations, their transformation. It happened, even when I was teaching voiceover and acting, that there was a way I would teach that would allow people to unlock stuff inside of them that maybe didn't make them a better actor, but definitely made them a happier person. And when I began to understand that had been showing up in my life all along, I just didn't see it and didn't understand it. When I embraced it, that's when everything changed. That's when initially it changed in my hypnotherapy practice. And then when we brought all those techniques and tools together into this work, that's when everything really changed. And what we want you to understand is what we do is unique to us. Right. We were speaking to a woman recently, and she's like, so what coaching program did you guys study? What do you teach? And we're like, well, we created it ourselves. And she's like, well, how did you do that? Well, we created it from our own journeys. We created it from the work we did to create this. Right. And we've honed it over the years. We've honed it over year after year after year of working with private clients, working with groups, doing live events, and using these techniques over and over again and seeing how they transform women and how they transform their relationships, not only their relationships, the romantic relationships, but their relationships with their mother that was estranged, their relationship with their estranged children, their relationships with other people in their lives, their work relationships, how everything transforms when we really start looking at these pieces. So why don't we get in to what those pieces are? Go back here. Okay, let's start with epiphany number 1.
All right. Epiphany number 1 is you don't need better dating strategies. Oh, anybody breathing a sigh of relief? Anybody? Anybody? That you don't need better dating strategies? I just want you to really understand this because it's one of the reasons why we call ourselves soulmate coaches and not dating coaches. Because the truth is dating skills do not convert into how to make a relationship last. And so getting better at dating keeps you dating. Just like, if you get really good at, chopping carrots, do you have a meal? You don't.
No.
You don't have a meal because all you've got are some chopped carrots, but you haven't done anything with them yet. They're barely even a side dish, just some chopped carrots, right? And so let's get really clear. You don't need any better dating strategies, right? The other thing about dating strategies is you're left trying to cater to this other person. You're trying to get your love and approval and acceptance from a stranger. When you go on a date with somebody, that's a stranger across the table from you. So getting it better at dating ultimately has you focusing on the other person and how they are responding to you, how they are treating you, how they are communicating with you. And it leaves you out of the equation because you don't get love ultimately from another person. You share love with another person. And that love comes from yourself. We're going to talk more about that. So you can put a little pin in that. But I just want you to get it. Dating strategies don't get you to where you are. I mean, who ultimately wants to date anyway? Why would you want to hone something that isn't the ultimate goal? Dating is just a tool. That's all it is. Dating apps, just a tool. Dating online sites, just a tool. Dating itself, just a tool. It is not the ultimate goal. So what's really important for you to understand is when you focus on dating, you start looking for how do I get dates? Well, that doesn't help because there you are looking for where all those supposed quality men hang out at. Did you know that they all hang out at this secret little Starbucks? But only if the moon is full on a Thursday. I mean, come on, this is silly. We know that quality men don't hang out in one particular place. They don't. They're all over the world. They hang out where all the other men are. And like we said earlier, quality is in the eye of the beholder. So what you're looking for is going to be different than what some other woman is looking for. And so stop looking for quality men. Stop looking for new dating strategies. That is not going to get you to your ultimate goal of what we call soul satisfying and long lasting love.
Exactly. So we just want to share a quick story about our client, Diane, right? And Diane is somebody who took all the other workshops. She worked with all the other dating coaches. She said to us, look, I know how to date. I can get date after date after date. I am an expert at dating. In fact, I can get a second date with anybody if I choose to. And yet I can't find love. And so when she came to work with us, right, she really began to understand, oh, there's something else going on. And what's really amazing is she's now with her guy, and she didn't find her guy through dating. She actually knew her guy for 18 years, and she discovered him in a whole new way because she changed. So it wasn't about getting better at dating. She was one of the best daters there was. When we got into the dating portion of the program with her, she could get dates like that. It's like, no problem.
She had no problem. She was a dating expert, truly.
Dating machine, I would say.
Yeah, she was really great at dating, and it didn't get her any closer to her goal. And ultimately, she did a lot of dating through our program and ended up with the guy that she already knew for 18 years. And they've been together, I know they've been living together about 1.5 years now. They've been together about 2.5, going on 3 years, I think now.
Yeah.
So they've been together. And what's really interesting is, even though they knew each other for 18 years, they weren't in a relationship before. So they had to really discover one another in a whole new way. And the tools that she got about how to create lasting love came into play, which was a whole different skill set that she never learned while focusing on dating.
Exactly. Okay, let's go back to the slides and get to epiphany number 2. What you want is not the opposite of what you don't want. This may seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people are actually looking for the opposite of what they don't want, right? So say you've been dating a lot of unavailable guys who are emotionally unavailable, and you're like, well, that doesn't work for me. So what I want is a guy who's emotionally available. And so what's the issue here is you're still stuck in that dance. You're still stuck in that dance of emotionally unavailable and emotionally available. And there is a lot of emotion in that dance, right? Even though you're like focused on this other piece, emotionally available men, there's still that part of you that's hurt, it's angry, it's sad, it's upset, whatever the feeling is about all those emotionally unavailable men and what the story really is that drives you to find yourself in those situations over and over and over again. So when it comes to love, so many of us are in reaction to the past. We're in reaction to the past heartbreak. We're in reaction to the past frustration. We're in reaction to way back in the past to our childhood and how that affects how we are in relationship. Those childhood wounds that we're trying to heal in our intimate relationships. Now, most of us aren't conscious of that, but that's actually a big part of what's going on. It's a big part of the drive we have for intimate relationship, right? Which is very different from procreation and sex, right? Which is an instinct, right? But this drive to connect with another person on a deep, intimate level, a big part of that drive is to heal those wounds. And when we're in reaction to those wounds, we just end up creating more of the same. So we know this about manifestation. You cannot manifest from lack. Think about a job, right? You wouldn't say, well, the last job I had, I went to ask for a raise and I didn't get it and I wasn't treated very well and I just felt terrible. So I want a job where I never have to ask for a raise again. Said nobody ever, right? Because that's not a good way to find a job. If that's the only criteria you have for finding a good job, you're not going to find a good job. You may find a job where you never have to ask for a raise ever, but maybe you just get incremental raises. Maybe it's not a fulfilling job. Maybe you work with a bunch of, obnoxious people, right? So there's all these other pieces that are part of it. So you don't manifest from the opposite of what you don't want, right? And ultimately, it doesn't give you any clarity to create what's really in your heart's desire. Because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that love that is in your heart's desire, not that love that is the opposite of the one that didn't work, right? And it makes me think of our client, Susan.
Yeah.
Right. Susan came to us and she was actually married, and we normally don't work with, couples, but Susan's husband didn't want to work with us. It was just Susan. So we thought, well, we could definitely help Susan. And what we discovered when we were exploring, why she got into the situation she was in. So the man previous to her husband, Susan thought was the love of her life. She thought, wow, this is the guy, right? This is my soulmate. And what she discovered was that he was cheating on her. And she felt the betrayal, she felt the hurt, the anger about all that. And so she said, I am going to make sure that I marry a man that will not cheat. And she did. She met a guy, he's a really great guy, really nice guy. We would call him the should guy, right?
The should guy.
The should
guy. You got to
guy.
put air quotes there.
The should guy. I should marry him because he's a nice guy. I should marry him because he's a good provider, right? And this guy was. He was a nice guy. He was a good provider. But ultimately, it wasn't bringing her the fulfillment she wanted, and they were in a lot of conflict because of this. And what she began to realize.
Well, he would say to her things like, could you tone it down? Could you be less? Like, could he just tone it down? And she was the kind of person who lit up a room. Susan was somebody where you took notice. She was the person telling the funny story at the party that everybody was gathered around. Her light shined bright. And so she did get what she wanted. She married a guy who was never going to cheat. But what she didn't get is what she really wanted, because she did not marry a guy who wanted her to shine brightly.
And actually what she learned, they're still together, which, we think is a really great choice, because what she learned was how to really ask for what she needed in that relationship, how to express to him what it felt like when he was telling her to tone it down and not be so big and not take up so much space, right?
And they have 3 kids together. So
yeah.
It was really important that we find a way for her to understand that her making the decision to marry this guy was her choosing. And so he wasn't going to suddenly become a different person. And she wasn't going to become a different person either. And it really, one of the reasons we wanted to share this story is because it really only takes one person to change the dynamic in a relationship. It only takes one person to make that effort and to change things. But, you know, this idea of what you actually want, what's in your true heart's desire, is nothing to do with what you don't want. Not the opposite of what you don't want.
Exactly.
When you start looking at the vision of what you want to create, make sure it comes from your true heart's desire. That's where the good stuff is.
Yeah. So let's look at Epiphany number 3.
Oh, I love Epiphany number 3. Epiphany number 3 is you cannot ignore your emotions. Anybody try to do that? I'm raising my own hand. Anybody try to ignore your emotions? Just try to go, you know, like, oh, my heart's gotten me into so much trouble. Let me just let my head guide my way through life. I'm going to just use my intellect and my big, beautiful brain to guide me. It's never led me wrong before. Anybody? If you've been like me, the way I was in the past, you're trying to go through life just by using that big, beautiful brain of yours. And you know what? Our big, beautiful brains, that big prefrontal cortex is great. But if it is overdeveloped to the point of where your emotional life, your emotional guidance system is underdeveloped because you're trying to ignore your emotions and set them aside, then you're out of balance. And ultimately, if that balance is off, you're out of rapport with yourself. So the parts of you are not in harmony. So we have an intellect and this big, beautiful brain, but we also have an emotional guidance system that's in our heart. And it's important that you understand that they are used for different things, and you need both to sort of steer yourself through life. So emotions are important for you to understand what you're feeling. So the identification process of what are you actually feeling? And it may seem strange for some of you, but for those of you that this resonates with, I want you to really understand that identifying how you feel is important, because in order for you to really honor and value and ultimately love yourself, you must be able to speak how you feel. And you can't share with another person how you feel unless you've identified how you're feeling. And so I'm wondering if any of you are sort of perplexed right now. And if I asked you how you're feeling, how would you answer that? And I'm wondering how many of you, instead of identifying an actual emotion, would be giving me a thought instead. Anybody? Anybody identifying a thought instead of a feeling? Go ahead and type in the chat box. And if you're really confused about this idea between thoughts and feelings, be sure to ask us, because we're going to answer all of your questions. But we want you to understand that if you're moving through life only with your thoughts guiding you, you're leaving out a whole nother part that is essential to create the love you want. And that is your emotional life, your emotional guidance system. Some people have this habit of trying to ignore their emotional life, their emotions as they come up, or especially what we like to call the negative emotions. Now, we don't call them negative because there's something wrong with any emotion. We actually, Matthew and I believe that as spirit, we come into this solid form as human beings to feel the full range of human emotion. So there's nothing wrong with any emotion. We call certain emotions negative because we don't like to feel some emotions. We don't like to feel fear or anger or sadness or hurt, shame, or guilt. Right? These negative emotions and all of their different variations don't feel good in our body. And so for some of us, our parents would tell us, oh, you don't feel that, or don't be upset, or I'll give you something to be upset about, or whatever, all of those different things. And we're not trying to blame parents today, but I want you to know if you're disconnected from your emotional life, what might end up happening for you is it was a habit that may have been created as a little girl if you were not, allowed to really express your emotions in your family of origin. This could be a big disconnect. So you can't continue to go through life ignoring your emotions and expect to create love and lasting love. We actually have a client named Andrea, and Andrea really was told all of these things that we're talking about. She was actually raised by her grandmother.
And her grandmother would basically say, don't be upset, you're not upset, there's nothing to be upset about. And also what her grandmother would do is, if they were in a conflict, her grandmother would just walk away and ignore it, and it would just go away.
They would be in a Cold War, and
Yeah.
they just literally wouldn't talk sometimes for a week or two until, they just ignored it and moved on to something else.
Exactly.
So Andrea grew up really not being connected to her emotional life. And one of the things that she told us when we first connected with her is, she said that she knows she's attractive. She's in her early 50s. She'd never been married. And all the guys that she'd end up in a relationship with would ultimately break up with her. And they would all tell her that they just don't know what's going on with her. She comes across as this cool blonde. And that she felt like there was so much inside of her that she wanted to express and share and say. And she thought she was doing all of that. She thought she was an open book, sharing what was going on with her. And yet these men were disconnected from her. These men thought of her as cold and cool. And at first it was sort of like a challenge for them. Like, ooh, she's a mystery. Let's see if I can crack this nut. And eventually they got tired of trying to crack the nut, and they would leave.
Yeah. In fact, she did end up in a long-term relationship with a guy, and he was somebody who valued logic over emotion and would dismiss emotion all the time and say, it's not logical, it doesn't make sense, let's be logical about this. And so it really fit on a subconscious level what she knew, which is, here's a person who says, well, emotion's not important, and that's how I was raised. Emotion's bad, it's not important, stay away from it. But ultimately she was unfulfilled in that relationship, and that's one of the big reasons why she started working with us. And she's really begun to open up her heart and really begin to blossom and really begin to just, it's interesting how warm and loving of a person she really is underneath that cold exterior.
And so these two parts of her are coming into harmony, so that she's understanding that her intellect is important, and she's not going to set that aside either. But she's having this foundational piece of connecting with herself and how she's feeling. And she's able to create connection with another person by expressing how she feels. It's an essential part in creating the love you want.
Exactly. Let's go to our next epiphany. Okay. Epiphany number 4. The feeling you think you're looking for is not love. I'm going to say that again because I know this is one that makes people go, what? The feeling you think you're looking for is not love. So we hear all the time from all the personal growth and motivational speakers, right? That take that fear you're feeling and turn it into excitement, because the truth is there's no difference between the physiological experience of excitement and fear other than the internal dialogue we're having about the experience. And we always give this example, right? You're there at the amusement park, and you're in line to get on the big roller coaster, the one that's like the tallest, the fastest, and Orrin is going crazy because she loves those. And so you're standing in line, but everybody standing in line is having somewhat of a similar experience. Their heart rate is beginning to pick up. Their breath is getting a little more shallow. Their palms may be getting a little sweaty, right? There's some adrenaline pumping in their body. We're all having that same physical experience in that situation. And yet we're all also having two very different internal emotional experiences. The first experience we're having is, oh God, this is so much fun. Let's make sure we sit in the front, right? Because that's the best view, and that's the craziest part when you're climbing that hill and then you come down and it's like, oh,
I like that. I like to wait for awesome. I like to wait for the front car.
Right? It is so awesome, right? That's some of the people in line. The rest of the people in line are saying, what am I doing here? Why did I do this? I don't want to do this. I might get sick. Oh my God, this is terrifying. What if the thing crashes? I don't want to do this. Why are we here?
They're terrified.
They're terrified, exactly. But they're both having the same internal experience. So this is the way it's always talked about from the motivational speaker and the personal growth way. It's like in your life, step into your fears and really overcome them, because it's really just excitement.
Take that fear and turn it into excitement is what we're told all the time. Unfortunately, when it comes to love, there's a mismatch.
Yeah, what we discovered in really early on in this work that we were doing, and when we were working with the first women that we first, were helping them on their journey to love, what we discovered is there's a certain group of people who mistake fear for excitement. They actually do the opposite. It's a fear response. There's everything in their body is saying, this is the wrong guy, run away, run away. He's gonna mistreat you, he's unavailable, he's whatever that wound is that's showing up. Your subconscious is saying, run away, run away, run away. And yet you're going, oh my God, I feel so excited. I can't stop thinking about him. It's obsessive. And you're thinking that is love. And what we want you to get is that is not love. That's a fear response that you're having. And it's a false positive. It's actually something that you need to run away from, not something that you need to get. So it's the wounds from your past that's creating that feeling.
And what we want you to know is we're using a little bit of hyperbole to say, if you've had trauma in the past, this is a big one that shows up for people. But it doesn't have to just be the trauma, people. It can actually just simply be a mismatch of something that is familiar, a past familiar experience of you not having the love you want, that gets triggered by Mr. Wrong instead of Mr. Right. And you interpret that signal from your subconscious saying, this is familiar, the danger of the familiar, to think that it's actually what you want. And so there's a way for you to pay attention to what is the right feeling that you're looking for, the right body sensation. And it's really easy. I'm going to have Matthew guide you for a second about how you can check for yourself if you're somebody who's actually looking for the wrong sensation.
Well, before we go there's a couple other things I want to say.
Okay.
So one thing we want you to do is when you look at those situations where you felt that obsessive energy, you felt that intense attraction to somebody, right, is ask yourself this question. Did it ever turn out well? Did it ever turn out to you being with the love of your life? We would guess that it didn't. And
or you wouldn't be here today.
You wouldn't be here. So I am somebody who had this response in a lot of ways. So there was a woman I dated, and this situation actually prompted me to begin a lot of the work I started doing on myself. So she was somebody who we had a really sort of intense attraction at the beginning, and it was kind of exciting. And I really felt like she got me, like she saw me, right, who I really was. And about 2 weeks in, literally, I'm already like, I'm all in and I'm going all for it. And 2 weeks in, she looks at me and she says, I'm going to end this relationship. I like you. You're a really cute guy, but I can tell you like me a lot more. And so I don't want to hurt you much worse later on. I'm going to actually end this now. And I was devastated. I was like, what just happened? Like the rug got pulled out from under me. What's going on here? Right. And it was that experience that really woke me up and said, wait, there's something wrong with the way I'm thinking about love. If this is the person I think, wow, she's the one. And she's like, nope, you're not it. I'm moving on. So when you ask yourself about that question, right, has it ever turned out well? I think if you look at your past history, you'll see that feeling has consistently led you astray. So the journey is really about healing those wounds from the past, healing that trauma, healing whatever that story is, so that these people are no longer a resonance for you. And we've seen it happen over and over again with our clients.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a past traumatic experience as far as abuse of some kind. I mean, we had a client last year named Melissa who had been married before and divorced, and she came to us after ending an engagement to a fiance who she suddenly had the awareness he's just like the ex-husband, and she couldn't figure out like what is going on here. And what's interesting about Melissa is she ended up having a really solid family of origin. Her parents were married for many years. They were together. She and her brother were well taken care of. There wasn't any sort of traumatic anything that really fit the model of what we're used to seeing with this mismatch of the kind of man she was choosing for herself and the family of origin story. And what we discovered is in Melissa's family of origin, from when she was a little girl, like 5, 6 years old, her dad got really sick and went in the hospital. And everybody thought Dad was going to die. And he didn't. Dad ended up coming home. But then it happened again and again and again. And actually, Dad ended up living a pretty long life. He didn't pass until she was in her mid-30s. And what happened for her is it was internalized as a child, this idea of, oh my God, I'm going to lose my dad. Because everybody was on pins and needles about what might happen to dad. Dad was in the hospital and out of the hospital her entire life. As far as her brain was concerned, there was this constant on edge feeling. And she ended up choosing men who, quite frankly, were narcissists and wanted to control her. And this feeling of being on edge was something that she linked together is what love felt like, because she loved her dad and her dad was in and out of the hospital. There was all this uncertainty and she had to put things on hold when he was in the hospital, holding her breath as the whole family did, praying and hoping that he would come home again. And then he did. And there was rejoicing. And then he would go back in the hospital. And so she ended up internalizing this sort of feeling of connection and disconnection and connection and disconnection, and the pain involved and the suffering of being terrified you're going to lose somebody you love. And it guided her to choosing narcissistic men who wanted to control her.
And what's really amazing, after going through the transformation, she's now with a really sweet, supportive, wonderful guy, a guy who wants nothing more than to see her shine in her life. And he's there to be this grounded support for her. And she recently said to us, and I just love this quote, is she said, you know, without you guys, I'd actually be dating an asshole right now. Because she got it, right? That part of her, that little girl, was attracted to that energy that was uncomfortable, that energy that was uncertain. And it always showed up as these sort of narcissistic jerks. But now she broke the pattern. She's with a really amazing guy.
I just want to share, Lauren typed into the chat box, I feel hopeful. And I just want to say thanks for sharing that. There is hope for you. If you resonate with any of these epiphanies, we're going to really share with you more about how you can really transform wherever you are to where you want to be. Go on that journey to your beloved so that you can create your own true soul partnership. So stick with us. We have more to share with you. I just want to go over these 4 epiphanies.
Sure. Well, we have one more, so.
I know, but let's just recap, and then we'll do number 5. So epiphany number 1 is you don't need more dating strategies.
Right. Epiphany number 2 is what you want is not the opposite of what you don't want.
Epiphany number 3 is you cannot ignore your emotional life.
And epiphany number 4 is the feeling you think you are looking for is not love. So let's get to our final epiphany. Epiphany number 5.
So epiphany number 5 is your love imprint is driving you when it comes to love. It's driving everything about you. So let's talk about this idea of your love imprint.
Right? Your love imprint is how you learn to receive love in your family of origin. Notice we've been talking about that a lot. And this really happens from when you're born till about 8 years old, that your experiences with your family of origin and how you experience love and how love works, and what we say, these pieces, right? The limiting beliefs that you develop in that time period, the mental emotional patterns that you take on, and the behavioral strategies that you learn around giving and receiving love. This all makes up your love imprint.
So your love imprint is a system that's in your subconscious mind. So I'd love for them to see us. I want to talk a little bit about how it's formed so you really understand that this isn't something that occurs in a moment. It's something that gets put in place when you're little. So when you're a little girl, from the moment you pop out of the womb, like 0 till about age 8 or 9, the way the brain works is there's no separation between our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. In a sense, everything gets written on the hard drive. It's why kids can learn so quickly to walk and talk, and they can learn multiple languages, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that they can learn. They're just like little sponges learning these systems and these things that eventually go on autopilot. The thing is, if you've ever heard this phrase, you cannot reason with a 4-year-old, you know that that's a literal truth, because you can't reason with a 4-year-old. A 4-year-old cannot reason. You can't judge at that point. So if you look at how school is taught, children are taught to memorize things and repeat things all the way up until about age 8, 9. And that's when learning in school changes, because that's when the mind changes. So
besides the fact that we need, our physical needs taken care of because we're unable to do that when we're a small child, there are 2 other needs that we have. We need to feel loved and we need to feel safe. And if we feel these 2 feelings, we can thrive. right? But these needs are so strong that even if we're not really getting the love and the safety that we require, we will take on a belief system or a strategy in order to feel loved. And the way this works is we have our flawed parents, right, who are loving us in the way that they're capable of. And some of them were not very capable at all, right? Some were more capable. But these parents are doing the best they can. And ultimately, it's not the love that we need because it's not giving us that feeling of love and safety. And so children have this really amazing way of taking full responsibility. Instead of being able to say, well, gee, mom or gee, dad, that's not really helpful. What would really be great is if you gave me a hug and told me you believed in me, right? Instead, what we do is we say, what is wrong with me? What's wrong with me that my parent is behaving this way? And we take on a limiting story, and that limiting story becomes part of our identity. And once it becomes part of our identity, it moves out of our big conscious brain and into our subconscious, and we no longer think about it, but it is driving the boat. It's our GPS for love. It is what's picking people that we are attracted to.
It's what creates that spark of attraction. So let's go back to the slides. I think that this is really important for you to understand this system, and it's running on autopilot. You're not making a conscious decision when you meet somebody, ooh, I'm going to choose to find him attractive, or I'm going to choose to not find him attractive. It's something that happens on autopilot, right? So your love imprint even determines who you have that spark of attraction with. And it's happening from your past experiences. So if you've never experienced the kind of love that you're looking for, now there's a mismatch, you're in trouble. Because now you're going to keep picking guys that match the wounds, the where you didn't get loved the way you wanted to when you were that little girl in your family of origin.
So your love imprint, as we've been talking, it lives in your subconscious, where all things that you learn to do and it runs on autopilot, just like tying your shoe and driving your car. And if you're smart, right, if you're a smart woman, a smart person, what that really means is you have a fast processor. And having a fast processor means you take in information and you process it a lot faster. And so this system is actually running faster for you. It's actually making these assumptions a lot quicker for you. And it makes it even more difficult when you're trying to use this big prefrontal cortex to decide who's a good match and who is not.
And you can try to override it, but you end up with the meh experience, right? Anybody ever try that? Try to sort of settle for the should guy, the guy, you should marry him because, he's a good guy. And yet you don't have the feeling, you don't have the humana, the good stuff. So you can't sacrifice the chemistry because that just leads to broken marriages too. It leads to all kinds of havoc. Because you can't settle for a lifetime together where you're gonna face challenges. I know each of you has had challenges as a single person, and you're gonna have challenges as a couple too. And so you need that essential ingredient. So let's look at this system of your love imprint, right? Your subconscious mind doesn't speak in the language of like English or French or Swahili or Hindi or Spanish. That's not the language of the subconscious mind. Instead, your subconscious mind it actually, you can't communicate it with it that way. So I can't say to one of you, like Jane, who's on the line, right? I can't say, hey, Jane, subconscious, we want you to release this idea of these kind of men that aren't a good match for you. I'm not doing anything. I'm still talking to that conscious mind.
Right.
So you can't talk to it that way. This is why we want you to understand having a conversation with somebody, anybody, your parent, your ex, your friend, your coach, that's not going to change anything on the subconscious level.
So we can get all the information we want, right? We can get all the learning, we can analyze ourselves and discover all this stuff, but it's not going to change the story because we got to work with the subconscious. Because ultimately what you attract is familiar to you over what you desire. Right? Because you're programmed to survive. You are not programmed to thrive.
And Matthew uses the word story a lot, but we could call it a system, a story, a decision. We like to call the idea of your love imprint a decision. And we know you didn't make the decision like a conscious decision, like you had a multiple choice. You want love to be A, B, C, or D. That's not the way it happened for you as that little girl. You ended up in situations and you had experiences. And you gave meaning to those experiences. And those meanings that you assigned to those events in the past formed your love imprint, your limiting beliefs about love, your mental, emotional patterns about love, your behavioral strategies around giving and receiving love. And so, wow, right? What are you going to do if you can't talk yourself out of thinking in a new way? Because remember, your thought processes are not flawed. It's not your thinking that's flawed. It's actually in the system of what love is to your subconscious mind. Is it enwrapped with pain? Is it enwrapped with uncertainty? Is it wrapped in a healthy package of, you know, getting secure, loving consistency from those people who raised you? Well, you know what? If you're on this webinar right now, probably not. Your parents fell short in some way. And you know what? Their parents fell short in some way, and so on and so on and so on. So what we're talking about ultimately is the human experience. These essential wounds, these original core wounds that are keeping you stuck from creating the kind of love that you actually desire to have as a grown woman.
So your mind wants information, but information, like we've been talking about, is not what's going to change. It's not the change you're looking for. It's not the change you desire. Ultimately, you're a complex human being. And it's not one thing that's keeping you stuck. It's this system we've been describing. Your love imprint system is what we call that. So today we promised.
Yep, we promised you that we would share how your big, beautiful brain is getting in the way of having the love you want. I believe we've shared that.
Yeah, we promised to show you why getting new dating strategies isn't going to help you find your beloved, because it's not changing this story that you're carrying in your subconscious.
Today we promise that we debunk the idea that you need to find where all those magical, mythical quality men are hanging out. Remember, you don't need men. That is not it.
One.
Just need one.
And the truth is, you may not find those quality men attractive because it doesn't match, once again, the subconscious story. And today we promised we would disclose how to be loved for who you really are.
Because that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
Today we promised we'd reveal the real reason you've been struggling to create that long-lasting and soul-satisfying love with a partner. So here's what you need to transform your love life.
Stop looking for better dating strategies and learn a new approach to your love life. Learn this new approach to thinking about love.
Create your soulmate relationship from a clean slate, not based on the past, not stuck in the past, not from what you don't know you don't want. You can't create from lack.
Yeah, you've got to heal those wounds. Start paying attention to your emotional life and begin to trust your heart. Begin to trust what, like Orna said, your emotional guidance system.
Discover a new experience of what love can be for you, a whole new experience.
And finally, unravel the system that's driving your behavior in relationship.
So you have a choice, and we present it to every single one of you that's joining us today. You could walk away from this webinar and keep doing your version of lather, rinse, repeat, going through breakup after breakup after breakup.
You can spend time with your head buried down in your work, right? Or your kids, or whatever it is that you do to distract yourself from that loneliness that you feel.
You can keep struggling to find those quality men that actually exist all around you,
hoping that one day you're going to find that magical solution by accident. Or you can learn a whole new way to do love as a grown woman.
You can finally find a whole new kind of man attractive, right? You can be attractive to that guy, that one who's going to stand by you no matter what.
You can create a life with a partner that you love, who gets you and who loves you too.
Yes, you're going to have to do some work, but it's a system that's been proven over and over by hundreds of others who've walked this path before you, and you'll have zero doubt. Can you imagine that? To have zero doubt about how to choose the best life partner for you.
So we want to invite you to join us at yourloveimprintsession.com.
And get a Your Love Imprint session with us. So yourloveimprintsession.com, that's where you want to go, because this is the opportunity for you to see that system of what's driving you in your love life. It's not driving every woman on the planet. We're going to talk about you. This session is just us. There isn't going to be, it's not a group thing. This is a one-on-one thing.
Exactly.
Because again, you're unique. Your system, your love imprint, it's unique to you. And we need to speak with you. And it's your participation is required. It's not something that we bestow upon you. This is something that we are really good at providing for you so that you can really see why you've been stuck and that you can look at this whole other part of you, this system that's driving your choices when it comes to love. And remember, it even determines who you have the spark of attraction with, which is part of the problem.
So, what does your true soul partnership look like? Can you imagine what it would be like to be living your life alongside your beloved?
Having that special guy that you know you can count on, as sure as you know the sun will rise tomorrow. Does anybody have a doubt that the sun is going to rise tomorrow? I know I don't. The sun will come up and it will set again. Don't you want a guy who's going to stand by you like that you know you can count on, and your heart still skips a beat when he walks in the room, even after a decade together?
Maybe if you have children, can you picture modeling a healthy romantic relationship for them so that they learn how to do love well?
Yeah, or maybe you want to create children with your life partner. Imagine that, having children that are raised in a home where they know what love is, what's possible for them in creating a true soul partnership, because you're modeling it every single day. Can you see yourself moving through the world knowing no matter what, that you'll have a partner by your side to get through the challenges and the joys of life together? Because isn't that what life is really supposed to be about?
So we just want to share with you some people who've gone on this journey with us. So here's Katerina and her husband, Jason. They were married on October 2nd in 2016, and we were actually guests at their wedding. It was pretty awesome. And Katerina said this: "I'm beyond happy that after coaching with you, everything changed and quickly. Now I have my guy and all the tools to make love last through the years. Thank you just isn't enough. I want to shout from the rooftops how happy I am now."
And here's another real results testimonial from Felicity, our client. They got engaged just 1 month shy of the marking of a year from when she started her coaching package with us. And Felicity thanked us profusely for our support in creating her dream life with her beloved. And she says this, I love this quote. She says, "Charles being in my life makes every part of my life more valuable. Working with you was the best investment I have ever made."
Another real results testimonial. This is Devi, and Devi actually joined us from India on a program we had. And she said, "I'm very happy to say that I have found my beloved. I am so glad to have completed the Love on Purpose course. The techniques and suggestions are bang on the buck. Thank you both for your help, support, and sharing your experience and journey. You're paving the way for many others who are seeking to find true love and happiness."
I love their wedding pictures. Those Indian weddings are so colorful and beautiful. This is Alyssa. She says, "I met my boyfriend 1 month after my coaching program with you was completed, and I wasn't even seriously trying to find someone at this point. Your method works, and your coaching is excellent. You both catch the little things that have a big impact on relationships and then explain why." And that's Alyssa Rizzo. And she and that same boyfriend are still together many years later. Yeah. I think it's been like 5 years they've been together now.
And here's Mariev. Mariev decided to coach with us after her boyfriend of 4 years just dumped her out of the blue. She was devastated. She thought she missed her chance, not just for love, but to have a baby of her own. And we love this picture because here she is with her beloved and their son, Antoine. She says this about our work together: "I could never thank you enough. When I came to you, I thought I had wasted 4 years of my life. Today, I'm living the best years of my life with my beloved Jean-Sebastian. I sometimes have to pinch myself to know I'm not dreaming. Thanks to the coaching we did together, I have everything I've ever wanted."
And of course, that's the baby's first birthday when he gets to have cake for the first time. I love that picture.
With the cake all over his face.
Yeah. This is Diana, we mentioned earlier. She said, "Thank you, Orna and Matthew, for being my love surgeons and helping me clear out all that unnecessary subconscious garbage in my head so I could become the person and partner I consciously want to be for me and my man. This is Diane with her beloved Michael.
We have one question for you. Are you next? And if you are next, join us at yourloveimprintsession.com. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Like we said, we're going to stay on if there's any questions, but that sort of ends all the content that we have for you today. But we're definitely, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box. I'm going to step away.
No,
leave
that
up?
Just for a little bit, but we do want your questions. So we're so glad that you shared with us today for why smart women stay single. We hope you've had some epiphanies as we shared the 5 epiphanies with you today. YourLoveImprintSession.com will allow you to apply for a love imprint session with us. Remember, this is not a group program. This is something we do just with you, because we're going to determine your love imprint and the system that's been driving your choices in relationship. So let's bring up the chat box. If you have any questions about anything that we've shared today, we are here and we're going to stay on the line as long as you have questions. We just have from Doreen, thank you. She says, thank you to us. Well, thank you. She says it's very informative. So we're grateful that you are spending part of your Saturday with us today. If there aren't any questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I thought there would be questions, especially about the...
Maybe we answered all their questions.
Maybe we answered them. I know, but usually people are like, what? The feeling I'm looking for is not love?
Okay, here we go. Here's a couple questions. Would it be possible to briefly explain which is your method to address the subconscious beliefs? Certainly. So I am trained in hypnosis, NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and therapeutic imagery. And all of these techniques are basically ways of accessing the subconscious to speak the language of the subconscious, which is symbol, image, story, and metaphor. And the subconscious lives in the body. Now, what I've done over the years with that training is I've actually created some unique processes that we just use in this work that are very specific to the journey that we take people on.
So we have big skill sets and big toolboxes. I had my own, bag of tricks, so to speak, as a manifestation coach, which I bring to this work. And Matthew had his skill set that he brings to the work, and we put them together. So we mentioned on the webinar that you connect with your beloved on the path to your highest and best self. So I am trained as a professional hand analyst, non-predictive scientific palmistry. So all of our higher level programs allow you to see your life purpose arenas, your life lesson arenas. So one of the things that we do, and why we have an amazing success rate with our clients in these higher level programs, is we look at your love imprint, the system in your subconscious mind, but then we also connect it to your soul's journey, why you're here. And so we look at the intersection of your love imprint with your life lessons in this lifetime as part of your soul's journey. And so we don't leave any stone unturned, because if part of your love imprint is intertwined with your life lesson arenas, your life lesson you have for this whole lifetime. And so transforming it isn't about making it, quote, like go away, like we can with just a habit or a system or something that was created in your family of origin. If it's part of your soul's journey, we actually get to delineate those pieces, because usually it's not a direct overlap, but they do intersect. And so we really are like love surgeons, like the way Diane Waldman had expressed, that we get to go into the subconscious using the tools that Matthew has, but we also get to use this very practical tool of the hand analysis to see who you are at your highest and best self. So I know somebody says, I know my love imprint all too well. Have you help? I think we just answered that. So if we didn't answer your question in explaining the toolbox, I think we did. But if we didn't, please go ahead and let us know a follow-up question. We're happy to stay on today and answer as many questions. She says you did. Okay, thanks. I'm happy. We want to answer your questions today.
So Brenda asks, can you talk about double bind situations? Now, we didn't bring up double binds in this call, but we have talked about them in the past.
That could be a 20-minute.
I'm going to do a shortened version.
Good.
Right? So a double bind goes like this. Usually it shows up when we have this kind of dialogue. Well, part of me wants, but the other part of me feels or experiences, right? Or on the one hand, what I really desire, but on the other hand, I also feel, right? And the most common double bind, or the most obvious one to look at, is the conflict between your freedom and independence and being in an intimate relationship. And those two things can feel like they are opposite of each other. And as long as you are stuck in a double bind, literally what it means is like you're arm wrestling with yourself, and you're not going to go anywhere until you release that internal struggle. You're actually stuck. It's hard to move forward when you're in a double bind. And so we're masters at getting people unstuck from double binds. It's pretty amazing when it happens, because it can happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, and so Matthew gave an example of a double bind. Not everybody is stuck between wanting a relationship and sacrificing their freedom and independence, but that is a common way in which it shows up. We know that a lot of like law of attraction type things has you like creating space in your closet and setting the table for two and all of this sort of stuff. And quite frankly, if you're stuck in a double bind, he's not coming. You could set the table for two and have half your closet empty for decades, and he's not coming. If you believe you have to sacrifice something that you prize, that you value in order to bring love in, he won't come in. We want you to understand you are the driving force behind your belief system. And so if your belief system is blocking him from coming, none of those sort of law of attraction, wave a wand, do a thing, and he'll just magically show up doesn't happen. Now, for those of you who just didn't think about that you wanted a relationship, you can go out and do that. I mean, there's somebody that we know very well that's like, oh, I turned 40 and I realized I forgot to get a husband. And so as soon as she started focusing on getting a husband, poof, he showed up. That's not the way it was for me at all. I wish it would have been that simple.
Exactly.
So if you're complexly wired, you will also have a love imprint, and you will have a double bind in addition to the love imprint. So everyone has a love imprint, but not everybody is stuck in a double bind. So a lot of times we'll speak with somebody in a love imprint session where they will fill out the application and they think they're stuck because they're in a double bind, and that may not be true. So not everybody is stuck in a double bind. It's a very unique situation, like being stuck between a rock and a hard place. And if you're stuck there, you're having an internal struggle, as Matthew described, as arm wrestling yourself. It's like you are divided in half, and both parts of you are equally strong. So neither side can win nor lose, and you're therefore stuck.
Yeah.
So I hope we answered about the double bind question. Thank you for asking, even though that wasn't the subject of today's.
Exactly. And I'll say this, even though a Your Love Imprint session isn't specifically designed to discover double binds, oftentimes they just reveal themselves pretty quickly because of the way you answer the questions, or the way that you speak to us when you're on the phone and in the session itself. So Wendy writes this. She said, you mentioned how to tell if he's Mr. Right by checking where you feel a sensation in your body. Can you elaborate?
Yes, and I want to tie that into Brenda's below, because we're going to answer it in the same way. So we're going to answer Wendy and Brenda all together. Brenda says, if love is the feeling I'm wanting, how is that not what I'm going for? So Brenda, what I want to say to you is the sensation that you mentally identify or intellectually identify with the feeling that you desire isn't actually driving you towards the thing you want.
Can you give the example of the difference between me and other guys?
Yeah, somebody asked me that the other day, and actually in the Love Imprint session call. Somebody said, how did you know Matthew was the one? And how do you know Matthew was the one? And this was something that really plagued me as a single, grown woman, because I'd hear all the time, and I'm sure you've all heard it too, when you know, right? We've all heard that. We've all heard people find love and they're like, oh, I'm so lucky. And you're like, well, how did you know? Well, when you know, you know. And I didn't cover this in today's webinar, but if you've been part of our community for any length of time, you've probably heard my story where I ended up in a relationship in 1990, the end of 1992 and all through 1993. And on New Year's Eve of 1994, that boyfriend actually beat me. And it was the wake-up call of a lifetime. So I am a survivor of domestic violence. I actually like to think of myself as a thriver of domestic violence. I didn't just survive, I chose to thrive. It was the scariest night of my life. Yes, he almost killed me. I'm glad I'm alive today to share with you the journey that I went through. So the feeling I used to have, like with that guy or anybody else that I would pick, and not everybody, but I always like to say this, the boyfriends I had before Matthew were not horrible guys. They were good guys. They just weren't my guy. So I had to evolve and change and get to just, nice, the good guys first that I would find attractive. And I did find them attractive. We just weren't a match for other reasons. So there's more that goes into it besides chemistry. But when you have that spark of attraction that is driving you in the wrong direction, you have to look at the sensation in your body. So the sensation that I used to have was a very sort of obsessive spinning sensation in my body. It was something I couldn't undo. It's like I would meet somebody and I'd have this intense attraction to them and they'd be on my mind all the time. And it was like a spinning sensation. Like, is he going to call? Is he going to call? Is he going to call? Oh my God, he's called. He's called. He's called. And it's like, it was almost like a drug. Like when I was with that guy, I could feel calm. But if he wasn't in my actual physical presence, I couldn't calm myself down. So the feeling felt very off balance. So Wendy, to specifically answer that, you said, check the sensation in your body. So I want to ask you specifically, Wendy, when you've had that sensation of falling in love or being in love with another person, did you feel grounded at all? Or did you feel that you were in some way off balance, like somebody could just walk past you and like knock you over with a feather? Did you feel grounded at all, or did you feel like you could be knocked over with a feather? And I would love it if you would type that answer into the chat box, because I think this is really helpful for everybody who's still listening. And I would say almost everybody has stayed on the line to continue to hear us answering these questions. That when you check inside about this feeling, and I'm going to vamp for a little bit because I know Wendy's like, what did she ask me? So
knocked over is a good way to describe it.
Boom. Knocked over is a good way to describe it. So if you could be knocked over, if you could just, be, by the little, you could be knocked over and it doesn't feel sustainable, right? Because lasting love, that's what you want. You want the sensation of it being sustainable. If you're feeling the sensation of love isn't a sustainable feeling, like you could be knocked over with a feather, you're off balance in some way. Not everybody's feels like mine with the spinning sensation. Some people describe it as buzzing or bubbling or excitement, like the feeling of what they think is excitement. Like we talked about, this is a fear response. It's not a fear response meaning there's actual physical danger. It just means it taps into the familiar piece. So if you've never experienced the kind of love you desire, now everybody, I want everybody to do this. Put your hands on your heart. Take a deep breath, and if you're comfortable enough to close your eyes, or maybe it might take a couple deep breaths before you feel comfortable enough to close your eyes. And picture that sensation you want to have with your beloved, the sensation you want, like it can last, it's sustainable. And if you're unable to get the sustainable piece, I want you to feel from wherever you're sitting right now, like you have a metal rod that goes through your spine and out the top of your head, but it goes out your tailbone too. So it goes out your tailbone and it extends and extends and extends and extends all the way to the center of Mother Earth. And there's nothing that can knock you over. And it goes all the way up through your tailbone, up through your back, all the way through your spine, out through the top of your head. And now what I want you to take that feeling and I want you to explode it at the top of your head like fireworks, so that the fireworks are actually coming from inside Mother Earth through your body and exploding above your head. Bam. That's the sensation you're looking for. This is the sensation. I always say with Matthew, I knew he was the one because I felt grounded. I felt calm. I didn't have that spinning, obsessing feeling. I felt like I had roots, oh my gosh, like the roots of the biggest oak tree in all the land. And yet I felt like I had wings and I could fly. I had roots and wings, and it was sustainable. That's the sensation of love that can last.
Okay. So we're just going to double check. I know that's pretty amazing. That's pretty powerful to feel. We'll just double check to see if anybody else has any other questions before we wrap things up today. We want to thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, and I just want to say, we don't have a time limit. So if you want to comment on what I just shared, or if you're still a little confused, or I would love it if Brenda would comment. She said, if love is the feeling I'm wanting, how is it not what I'm going for? And so I want to know if what I just described for you helps you delineate the difference between what you had the intellectual understanding of what you wanted versus this sensation. What we call the other sensation, for me, I describe it as that spinning, obsessive, compulsive, not controllable, not sustainable, high rev, I think is a good way to describe it, right? Like high RPM rev that's not sustainable. We call that a love imprint match. So a love imprint match is a match to the wound. It's a match to the wound. So many of you don't know your love imprint yet. We're hoping that you want to have a love imprint session so you can really get that the system down. And do you have a double bind or don't you? And remember, you're complex. That's why we do these one at a time. It's not a group thing. We can't do diagnosing love imprints in a group this way, right? We want to get specifically what's going on with you. Some people their love imprint is quite simply wired. Some people are super complex, or they've got a love imprint and they've got a double bind and other things going on with them. So there's a lot of things in this system. Remember, your love imprint is made up of your limiting beliefs, your mental emotional patterns, and your behavioral strategies around giving and receiving love. And so I don't, because we're coming up to an hour and a half, I don't want anybody to think we're rushing off the line.
No, but we don't have any other questions.
I know.
So I'm just saying,
I'm just asking for feedback. If
sort
anybody,
of last call per se on questions.
Yes, if you want us to answer more questions, you've got to type them in the chat box, because we're not mind melding with you to read your mind and know your questions ahead of time. But I just want you to really understand that a love imprint match is the place where you can really go south, because that's what happened for me. When I met that guy who ended up almost taking my life, I thought he was it. I thought he was the one. So when people said to me, well, when you know, that terrified me. I didn't trust myself anymore, because when I thought I knew, it almost led me to the worst experience ever. And I almost lost my life because of that choice. So I really want you to understand that what you think you want may not be what you actually are looking for.
So Brenda says this: yes, I want love. The feeling I associate is similar to Orna: anxious, panicky, then settled when I hear from him. Yeah, so that is a love imprint match. That is coming from the wound. That is more of a fear response. It is not what love feels like.
Like lasting. In other words, the feeling when you have that anxious, panicky feeling, it's not going to lead you to what you actually want. It's not going to lead you to the type of relationship you want. And so the transformation for you, Brenda, is to be able to transform and know, so that that feeling lands with you as a deselect. Instead of feeling like, I want this, it turns into, nope, not him. It's a no, it's a deselect. We always say it's just as important through the dating process to know who to deselect and who to select, right? Because it's a discovery process.
So that means when I feel that feeling, that isn't what I want. I want to feel peace, calm, and surety. Exactly. That's it. All right. One last call for any questions.
I just want to clarify.
Sure.
I want to say to Brenda, yes, you will have a peace and calm, but you'll have the excitement. That's why I did the fireworks over the top of your head, right? Because there is an excitement, but it doesn't have the panicky, anxious, off balance feeling. So it might feel like the way I described, again, similar to the sense of like having roots and wings, but it will definitely have a foundation to it that feels sustainable. And you won't feel off balance anymore, but it'll have all the juicy excitement of having chemistry with somebody. I mean, I don't know if you get it. Like, I love this guy. I didn't settle. Like, I want you to understand, you cannot settle for a lifetime. You can't go from, okay, well, if I don't want that feeling, and then I'm just going to go for the guy where, it's the meh. Like, I want you to really get it, because the should guy, how do I say this? I guess the shortest way to say it is, many of our clients, probably 70% of our clients through almost a decade of doing this work, are divorced from the guy they tried to settle with. And so you don't want to try to settle for somebody. You don't want to go without, you can't just be going for the grounded feeling of like, yeah, he'll do. It's not an intellectual. The chemistry is going to be there, but the chemistry is going to show up differently than how it has for you in the past, on the other side of transforming this internal system.
Okay. Brenda says, yes, I was excluding being able to feel the excitement with it too. Exactly. I'm going from extreme to the other meh. Yeah. So that is how a double bind shows up oftentimes, is you're bouncing between those two extremes. So definitely, we'd love to talk with you more, Brenda, about how to transform all of that. So,
and you can do that by going to you'll So,
yes.
We just want to say again, can we come back to us full screen so everybody can see us?
We can.
I just really want to thank you again for sharing your afternoon, your evening with us, wherever you're joining us from in the world. It is our goal always to be your guides to love. We really pride ourselves on being effective and efficient with our clients. We know that the struggle is painful, that when you think you have all the understanding that you need and you still can't create the transformation you want, is where most people get stuck. And that is the bridge that the gap we bridge, right? This work is about doing the deep inner work so you can be in alignment with what you desire. So you don't have this thing in the middle of like, I don't know, right? The limbo of not knowing. I guess we're done because somebody's calling our office, which we didn't unplug the phone.
I'm just going to say this. Michael says you guys are great. Love your work. Thank you, Michael. So we're going to go ahead and end things with the phone call. Everybody have a great Saturday.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.